Welcome to our webinar, A Jungle Book, Oracle Cloud EPM from A to Z. A little bit about me. My name is Caroline Stenpeck. I'm the product manager for reporting and training at Alithia. I'm also an Oracle associate, and I have 10 years of experience working with corporate finance prior to my time here at Alithia. So I've worked in a variety of roles and kind of seen the day-to-day of how things come together, but then also how financial systems can help ease some of that workload. So I've worked at a variety of different companies, building out financial systems teams, and then also working with large planning application rollouts globally.
My name is David Paps. I'm Senior Director of our Solution Architecture team here at Alithia. I started my career building financial systems, implementing Oracle ERP and the Oracle EPM products. And fun fact about me, I wrote a book about best practices on budgeting and forecasting, a set of principles for the CFO during COVID. And I'd be happy to connect on LinkedIn, and you can just scan the QR code. Caroline and I are both part of Alithia's Oracle practice. Alithia is a consulting company with over 4,000 employees. We're primarily based in North America with offices in Montreal and an Austin Development Center. Our Oracle practice has over 450 Oracle consultants and a large number of Oracle ACEs, which Caroline and I are both Oracle ACEs. And we're really the thought leaders in the space to get out there and talk about the different products. And really what makes Alithia's Oracle practice special, we only implement Oracle business applications. So that's Oracle Fusion ERP, Fusion HCM, Fusion Supply Chain, and Oracle Enterprise Performance Management. So we really specialize in just the office of the CFO and controllership. And we run our business on the Oracle Fusion products. So in our webinar today, we're actually going to have 7 chapters, and really we're going to talk a little bit about why we created this webinar. And there's really just a wealth of sort of features that go slightly below the waves of the water. And so everyone's really jazzed with, the exciting features around AI and ML and predictions, but we're going to take you through 5 of our favorite features. And then at the end of our webinar, we'll just pull it together on how you can get started and some leading practices we recommend for our clients.
Welcome to part 1 of 7. It's truly a jungle out there. So why did we create this silly webinar? We actually, David and I, presented this webinar originally at Kscope 2025 in Dallas, Texas. And our intent really was to help people understand what outside of AI is going on in the Oracle EPM space. So with the Oracle EPM, you really have this all-you-can-eat subscription model. There's a lot with the enterprise licensing. And of course, from a features perspective, AI, ML, and Gen AI are where everyone's focus is throughout really all industries at this point. However, there are so many features that you can actually start using today as part of a continuous improvement cycle that are not AI, ML, and Gen AI related. So we wanted to give those a little bit of screen time here. So our goal today, we're going to actually surprise and absolutely wow you about some of our favorite features. Some of them have been around for a while and just kind of hide out in the background, and others are also a little bit newer. So within Oracle Cloud EPM, right, there are 8 modules, and then within each module, there are a whole host of other features. Right, from a module perspective, we've got all the different flavors of planning. We've got profitability, close, tax, and so on. And then if you dive into each one of those modules, right, there are additional features within each. Some features cross modules, some are self-contained, so to speak, and it's a lot to even use in part of one implementation, and that's where we like to have this idea of that continuous improvement cycle. There's your crawl, walk, run, and just being able to tackle new features as they get released as well. So we're going to talk today about some of the platform features that aren't on the list and we say tend to get lost in the jungle. The fun part of this webinar was actually being able to take different features and align them to various animals in the jungle. Unfortunately, we're not going to actually talk about quokkas today. And this is probably one of the great sadnesses today. But who doesn't want to learn about quokkas? They are these cute little animals in Australia, and they are obviously the happiest animals on earth because they look like they are always smiling. If you want to learn more about anything we talk about today, you can contact us at infosolutions@alithia.com. Welcome to part 2 of 7 of our webinar. We're going to talk about 5 of our favorite jungle features within EPM. So the first one are flex forms, right? The frog of our visit through the jungle here. A couple fun facts about frogs to get us going, but let's really spend some time where we want to and talk about flex forms. This is one of my actual favorite features, especially from having spent time in large finance organizations. But one of our kind of key challenges was always that we had hundreds of finance users and the ability to gain that consensus around something as simple as what forecast input form should look like was very, very challenging because everyone has their own best practices, right? And their own ways of working that they want to carry forward into this new system. And Oracle, I think, heard that feedback, and this is where flex forms come into play because they are incredibly flexible. They take the best things about forms, from my opinion, and marry them up with the best things about the flexibility of working with Excel. The one kind of kicker is they are available in Smart View only, but I don't think that any of your finance users will complain about this. It's just something to consider, I think, if you have a non-finance use case for rolling out the tool. And I think the other key thing to call out here, just that ability to run business rules. This is truly the best part of the standard forms functionality that really opens things up for working with flex forms, that you give people flexibility, but you can have rules still run on save. So let's do a quick side-by-side here, standard forms versus flex forms, right? Everyone, if you've been working in planning before or some of the other modules, you'll be familiar with these. When you're working in standard forms, right, these are the ones that are accessible in both the web and Smart View. They provide those structured data inputs. You can customize your row and column layouts, have dimensions set in the POV, things of that nature. How do flex forms contrast? They're only available in Smart View, but they layer in that flexibility to customize your row or column sets. And that's from a form design perspective, that's something that the administrator can control. You can have row flexibility, you can have column flexibility, or you can have both. You can sort and filter rows, add and delete rows using those Excel options for inserting and deleting. So again, it really just gives all your users that ability to customize how their form looks. And then they can actually just save that in an Excel workbook to come back to, tomorrow, next week, next month, next forecast cycle. And so it really does provide a lot of user flexibility there. Couple screenshots to show you guys how this kind of looks in the wild. And one of the nice features that got added in a little bit after the release, as you can see here, we have a series of rows and columns, right? But if you look down near the bottom, we've got a couple rows that are showcasing now as having invalid members. So one of the kind of gotchas about working particularly in ad hoc and also in these flex forms is if, say, you add a row and wanted to just type in here your product name, but if you misspell it or something of that nature, that row might historically just delete, and you might not notice if you have a lot. But now within Flex Forms, actually the rows will just highlight and it'll show you, hey, you've got something wrong here. It's invalid, but the rest of your form still refreshes. Same thing on this one, right? If you maybe have a space after a member name, something that's not quite so obvious of a misspelling, doesn't exist in the database, it will showcase that as being invalid in your Flex Forms. All right, if you're interested in learning more, talking through these Flex Forms or how you might want to deploy this to your organization, do please reach out to us at infosolutions@alithia.com.
Welcome to part 3 of 7 of our Hidden Features in the Jungle webinar. So part 3 is the umbrella bird. And so we're really going to go through and take a deep dive into really how you can craft great user experiences with Oracle Cloud Enterprise Performance Management. The umbrella bird, it's named for its large umbrella-shaped crest on its head, which can raise or lower like a moody hairdo. So it's really cool. So user experience is also very cool. And really our goal with Oracle Cloud EPM now is really to design, I like to say, iPad apps for FP&A. So it lets us craft an incredible user experience with big fat icons, guided process through whichever experience we're trying to craft for different people in the organization, whether it's executives trying to access it as a executive dashboard, if it's planners in different functions of the business trying to plan marketing expense or plan headcount or request capital funding. Everything we're trying to do is really to tailor the navigation and the ease of use for them. So it's just, what people have come to expect from a modern cloud-based application. And we're trying to get away from things that look like spreadsheets, right? And historically, these types of budgeting and forecasting tools have been really the domain of FP&A. FP&A is really used to all things spreadsheets, and it's really trying to find that balance between the two ends of the spectrum. And with Oracle EPM, we can provide both. With the Smart View engine, people can still interact with Oracle EPM applications with the Microsoft Office products or Google Sheets, but user experience becomes more and more important the farther you expand enterprise performance management beyond finance. So just as I was saying, if you're going to expand it out into the business to different line managers, different functions, different facilities, making it easy becomes more and more important. So how do you build a great user experience in EPM? It's really about the navigation flow, and navigation flow is the UX builder. I like to say it's the low-code application builder for FP&A. It makes it idiot-proof, and it makes your applications easy to learn. Here's just a screen grab from one of our applications, and if you can see, just some of the user elements in here that are really powerful is there's really clear descriptions across the top, informative icons. On the left, there's icons that you can hover and get tool text. Things are color coded. It's giving you validation messages of what the status of the different elements are. And then down at the bottom, really easy to see the tabs that make up some of the subscreens within the application. And if you notice in the bottom right, we've put an icon that says "How do I," which actually links to a micro video that embeds how-to training directly within the application. And this is just one example of how you should think about building an easy-to-use application for the people within your organization. Here's an example of the video that's embedded within the screens, and you can embed videos that are out on Microsoft Sway, YouTube, etc., and you can just embed it directly within your user experience for your users. So anytime someone gets stuck and says, "How do I do something?" they just click, and it's right there. So a couple tips on building a great user experience in Oracle Cloud Enterprise Performance Management. Number one, you want to taste test this or do essentially focus groups. So as you're constructing the user experience, it's very easy. It's just drag and drop. You pick from icons, you go through, pick the colors and all of that. But once you have something, ask for feedback from users that are stakeholders that are not familiar with the Oracle EPM technology. So go to somebody in one of your functional areas that are going to be logging into this tool. So like a manager in IT, a manager in marketing, ask them, "Hey, what do you think of this? How can we make it easier to use?" Always something Caroline and I like to do is actually take a PowerPoint, and whether you do this on paper or PowerPoint, sort of sketch out the flow of the application. So when people go and build iPad apps or iPhone apps, they actually storyboard it and say, hey, this is like where we're going to have the icons and the clicks and all the different things. Do the same thing, just to get a feel for how you want people to progress through the applications. It's also important to design for different screen sizes and formats. While your FP&A folks might have, their double monitor set up and huge, they could show 250 columns on a Excel spreadsheet. People out in your facilities that might be logging in on an iPad or tablet of some sort or their phone are going to have a different experience. And the Oracle EPM technology can render based on different devices, but it is important to sort of test that out and make sure you're not trying to clutter too much onto one screen. As we were showing in that screen grab, even the basics, I remember taking a usability class about 15 years ago. Even the colors you pick and the combinations of colors can really make, the system elegant, or it can make it ugly. So like colors like red and blue don't go together, as an example. So taking some of those just basic design elements into account could really make a difference between making your system look elegant. And remember, the first impression is the most important impression. So if someone logs into this tool that you build and it is not elegant, it's not explainable, it's got clashing colors, it's got weird icons, that stuff matters and will actually turn people off from your application. If you have people working in multiple geographies, you can actually have the tool translate from English to French to Spanish, whatever you need. If you actually look for the feature called artifact labels, it's very easy to set up the translations. You can basically hit export, it gives you an Excel file, and then you can go through and, nowadays you could probably use Gen AI to do some of the translations for you, or you can have someone in your different business areas translate, P&L to, the next language. And then when that person logs in based on the location settings of their operating system, the system will automatically tailor to that language. And then, as I showed, a best practice is to embed training and micro training and videos directly within the application on the individual screen. So you want people, if they get stuck, just click here and watch a quick 30-second video on what they're supposed to do. There are some other choices where you can really take this to the next level with Oracle Guided Learning, where you can embed animations and virtual cursor that clicks and shows people what they're supposed to do. So really can take this to the next level, but these are some great tips to build an elegant application. If you'd like to learn more, please contact infosolutions@alithya.com.
All right, welcome to part 4 of our webinar series. So let's meet our next jungle friend. And that is our tiger. So we're going to talk a little bit about Task Manager today, but first, a brief interlude on tigers. Tigers are pretty cool. They are very silent, very sneaky as they go through the jungle. And there's unfortunately, though, fewer than 4,000 of them left in the wild. So what is Task Manager? This is a tool. It's a very powerful tool, in my opinion. It's actually embedded into the Oracle EPM platform in Planning and FCC. And it I think it helps people, if you just decide to use this one, take those checklists that we have, for all those activities that have to get done on, your monthly, quarterly basis, and it brings it up a level. Basically, it acts as a smart checklist. It brings you from managing a list to more of a command center type view, from that watching for events and being able to trigger events in your processes, have those dependencies across multiple people, teams, systems. One thing that we see very commonly actually is that within FCC, with your accounting teams, you might have tasks that need to happen in account reconciliations as well as close consolidations tasks, and you can actually layer those ARCs tasks into your FCC version of Task Manager. So you have that full view, right, of what might need to happen for the team as you go throughout a close cycle. And of course, right, as with anything, the goal here is we want to shorten the cycle time and make sure that everything that needs to happen in the appropriate order happens. So with implementing this, this is a kind of one of those low hanging fruit, quick wins. And what I also like to tell people is when you do start to dive into all the features of Task Manager, it can be perhaps a little overwhelming because there's a lot of detail that you could bake into these schedules. But of course, you don't have to. You can start small and then build in over time. And that's kind of, I think, one of the really nice features about it is everything's there, but you can choose what you want to layer in and what makes sense to layer into each one of those schedules. So why would you consider using this, right? What would be the benefit of building out a process in Task Manager versus, say, continuing to manage it as an Excel checklist? From the financial close perspective, a really quick win to kind of get started, dip your toes in the water, would be those period and close checklists. And again, you can start with as much detail as you want or as little to just kind of get a feel for how the tool works and build more in over time. But a couple other areas to focus might be on your intercompany reconciliation approvals, anything where you need to manage approvals essentially would be great ones to build in because you can have that checkpoint in the process. And from a budgeting and forecasting perspective too, right? Maintaining your any budget or forecast cycles, you can integrate and have the process know, right? Okay, actuals are done, right, for September. Now we can move into the next phase of our cycle. So having those checks and not having to send around emails to say like, yep, the books are closed. That can be set up as something like a process dependency. Of course, the more fun stuff, there's secret task manager use cases. And these are the ones that, you give someone a little bit of an understanding of a process and they'll find a way to bring it somewhere great. But you could consider, and this is a great way to help your team understand how task manager works and then as part of a project and then as you go into your real life after the project and have a need to build out some real life use cases. Everyone is familiar with the tool, but you can actually manage UAT tasks out of Task Manager. And this is a really cool one because again, you've got all your forms, reports, everything's baked into the system. So why spend the time and effort building out test cases in another tool that will only get used once? You can actually layer that process in as part of a task manager schedule, and then also have some workbooking that gets generated at the end to package up and say, go hand over to internal audit that, yep, we've got UAT complete. A couple others, right? Every month you have your monthly maintenance that might need to happen. So from an administration perspective, building that out in Task Manager, I think also really quick win. Make sure that your admin team knows what everyone else is doing as part of the process. And then also regression testing for the patches that come out every month. Really, again, any sort of process that involves the system could be something that would be a good use case to start to build out in Task Manager. And again, you can start small, build in additional features over time. What does this actually look like? When you're actually in Task Manager, you can see the screenshot up at the top there, right? You can have the ability to assign each one of those individual tasks that makes up a schedule to an individual person, or you could assign it to a whole group of people and determine whether or not everyone in that group has to complete a task for it to be closed, or if just one person has to claim it and do it. So you have, again, a lot of flexibility into how you build out these schedules and track the status and timeline and all those good metrics. One other really cool feature about Task Manager is it does have built-in adapters, so you can integrate with Fusion, EPM, OIC, or REST APIs. If you're interested in learning more about Task Manager, do please reach out to us at infosolutions@aletheas.com. Welcome to part 5 of our webinar series. Let's meet our next jungle friend. So our 4th jungle friend here today, variance flux analysis. The actual jungle friend is the vulture. So let's talk a little bit about vultures. Keep this light. So vultures, they fly high over the land, and that's where they can spot animals from miles away, and they always see them circling. So how does this relate to variance flux analysis? I think this is a very common process that we see within finance organizations. And typically, this is something that does happen in Excel over a series of emails, phone calls, you name it. So the nice thing about Oracle EPM is that within narrative reporting, there are some really cool features that allow to build this into an actual tool and help streamline that process. And we've had many clients very successfully tackle this. So the cell text feature is essentially how you make this happen. You don't have to collect text via Excel anymore. You can do it directly within those board-ready reports, and then also store that text in narrative reporting so that you can build summary reports, and also use now, as of a couple months ago, actually Gen AI to help interpret and summarize those notes. So there's actually a lot of movement in this feature, and I do expect it to kind of continue to grow out over the next couple of years. But from a time to value perspective, baking in notes or starting to look at Gen AI, these are things that again, they're lower lifts, so you could pretty quickly spin up a small project within your Center of Excellence team to help act on it. Real quick snapshot of what this might look like, just so you guys get a feel for what the output could be. But if you see here, we've got over on the left side, you're trying to get traditional actuals versus plan, variance calculating. And then over to the right, you could have your report set up with a little pencil there in the upper right-hand corner for cells where you want to receive commentary back from the field. And one really cool feature about this is you with this inline commentary, you can specify to say only have commentary inputable if you're over a certain threshold, dollar threshold, percent threshold. So you can, as you roll this out to the field, you don't have to provide external guidance. If there's a pencil there, you can just say, this is where we're expecting to see commentary from you. And these reports are dynamic, right? So the notes can follow along with your different POVs and just be inputable wherever, again, you need them to be. So how do you configure it? First and foremost, you have to define that business process. So you need those standard templates, but then take those standard templates and understand the process behind for those thresholds, what fields are required, character limits as well. And then you take all of those requirements and bake them into those note templates. Once you set up the templates in your reports, then you can bake that in either as a cell level explanation or as a text box outside of a report. Lots of flexibility there, and from that you can actually use those notes in other reports. Believe it or not, you could create an executive summary report to take those detailed explanations and bring it up a level for your executives. Like I said, there's a lot of movement in this space. So once you get started, just be ready to be, I think, accepting new features as Oracle rolls them out. One of the latest ones is the Gen AI summarization of notes, because this has been kind of out there for a while. It's like it's great to have all your notes and commentary, but I don't need to know everything. I just need to know the 5 most important things. And so that's where this Gen AI summarization can help come into play with parsing through those notes. If you're interested in learning more, please contact us at infosolutions@alethea.com.
Welcome to part 6 of 7 of our webinar on the secret hidden features of Oracle EPM. Let's talk about the final one we want to go through today, our 5th jungle animal. So our 5th jungle animal is the snake, which is for strategic modeling. Fun facts about snakes: don't blink. Their eyes are covered by a clear scale called a spectacle, and snakes live on every continent except Antarctica. And people really fear them unnecessarily. We're more their predator than the other way around. So how does that tie into strategic modeling? Well, it doesn't. But hey, strategic modeling is a wonderful turnkey tool for CFOs. And strategic modeling is one of the 5 included modules in Oracle Cloud EPM planning. And I think it runs, people are always focused on their bottoms up, traditional budget or rolling forecast in the financials world, building out a 12-month P&L, collecting all the spreadsheets from everyone. From a bottoms up perspective, but strategic modeling is really the looking down from the office of CFO to inform the bottoms up planning process. And strategic modeling is included in both the EPM standard subscription and the EPM enterprise subscription. Time to value to set up strategic modeling is usually in terms of weeks. And why don't we drill into it a little bit? So what is strategic modeling used for? It's really meant for the CFO or their right-hand strategy team to model out 3, 5, 7 years out at a higher granularity than your bottoms-up planning process. What does that mean? Well, it's really, hey, what do we want our P&L, a summarized P&L to look like out 5 or 7 years, and have the built-in integration across the balance sheet and cash flow statement. And the use cases for this tool are really to replace Excel and provide really dynamic decision support for evaluating M&A, divestitures, looking at should we or shouldn't we make major investments, whether that's building a new facility, entering a new market, developing a new product that if we need to analyze our financial statements with or without making that investment. It's very useful for making financing decisions. So, around M&A, divestitures, and making major investments, there's the other side of it, which is really how are we, what's the right optimal mix to finance the organization, whether that's taking out debt, issuing debt, paying down debt, issuing a dividend, doing a stock buyback. Should we issue equity? Should we issue different class of equity? Pulling all of those different scenarios into one place where you can toggle them in and out. And then ultimately, having the ability to do really rapid modeling without the bulk of carrying a bottoms up forecast with all the cost center and account detail, and minimizing the involvement of other stakeholders in the organization. So just a couple of screen grabs of what you can do with this application. So really what's shown in the lower left here are really those different M&A or major investment decisions. You're able to say include, exclude, what scenario, and then what scenario do you want that to be accounted for. So you can do things like best case with this, financing structure, or worst case with this financing structure, and then be able to, off to the right, look at all the different scenarios side by side. So it's very, very powerful what if modeling tools. But again, the audience for it is really at that C-level function. We're always asked, well, where does Oracle EPM strategic modeling fit? I like to say, you're sort of in between the ultimate flexibility of spreadsheets and the predictable control of a decentralized planning process that you would see, within a bottoms-up planning process. We're really sitting in the middle with strategic modeling, where it's giving us the speed and control, the balance between speed and control, where we have a tool that's making sure things add up and there's not formula errors, that everything is being stored and backed up properly, and it gives you the flexibility to do long range modeling, but the control of being within a technology platform. And certainly there's a role for spreadsheets in the universe. If you're looking to do an ad hoc, back of the napkin estimate, within 15 minutes, pop open a spreadsheet. But when you're looking at, hey, should we buy or acquire a company? How is that going to impact all the different variables that make up our P&L, balance sheet, and cash flow? That's really where strategic modeling comes in and helps you avoid making errors and wasting time. If you'd like to learn more about Oracle Cloud EPM strategic modeling, I wrote a blog a couple months ago, and you're welcome to read it. Just scan the QR code here. If you'd like to learn more, please contact us at infosolutions@alithya.com.
Welcome to part 7 of our webinar. So pulling it all together. So throughout our time here today, we've talked through 5 features that, again, you can get a really quick time to value. So flex forms, strategic modeling, task manager, user experience enhancements, and variance flux analysis. All of these things you can tackle within the Oracle EPM atmosphere, and again, just really bring value to your users in a relatively quick way.
Thanks, Caroline. So food for thought on how do you deploy these capabilities. As you can imagine, a lot of these are sort of easy, and sometimes they, 80-20 rule of doing a big project. Everyone's focused on, the bottoms up planning process or the profitability tool or the close tool and getting like that big use case deployed. Well, with this Oracle Cloud EPM subscription, there's always new features being rolled out. And there's all this wealth of features that are really low-hanging fruit that, just spending a couple hours over the course of a month, you could roll some of these out within your organization. So we always like to say your project's not done at go live. You certainly have gotten, the big use case live, but there is always room for continuous improvement. So thinking through how are you going to carve out time or resources within your organization to adopt some of these additional features, and really, go from, hey, we're getting good value to great value out of the platform, and things like variance explanations, using the task management, using strategic modeling, using the variance explanation feature. Those are really easy things that you can deploy yourselves within your organization. So some of these features give you real benefits with minimal effort. So just a couple case studies of our clients that have done this. Case study number one of Caroline and my clients actually won an innovation award from Oracle last year, and it was for implementing the variance explanation process in narrative reporting to streamline the collection of variance explanations across hundreds of people. Just like every organization, they would send out the Excel spreadsheets every month. They'd collect them back on Teams, and then someone would have to go through all of them and read all the comments. They basically said, we're just going to collect the commentary within the tool, and then we're going to be able to look at it all in one place and then generate our management books. And so that's what they did, and they did it all in-house, because once you have the infrastructure of the applications running and you have narrative reporting running, it's really just setting up a couple of input reports to collect the information. Case study number 2, we are using Task Manager, as Caroline explained, to streamline UAT management on our projects. So imagine what this means is basically, instead of having all the test cases, in an Excel book, and there's a tab for each test case, and then on the tab, within the tab, there's all the tasks that the tester needs to run through. We just stick it in Task Manager. So it looks very similar. You pull up the test case, it has the tasks, and we can even deep link within the application, say, oh, you need to go to this screen or run this calculation, we'd actually deep link to those objects within the application. It just takes a level of friction out of the testing process. And then if something fails, they can mark it failed and put their comments in it. And so we actually get the feedback and have a place to store all the test case information. So just as a best practice, we're doing that on our projects. And the killer part of this is once the project's done, and as there's the monthly release cycle that Oracle has, one of the best practices to make sure you always regression test your applications between the first Friday of the month and the third Friday where the patches get rolled out into your environments. Well, isn't this a great place to just store all the test scripts of the key things that you want checked out before the patches get rolled out? And then case study 3 is one of our jungle friends is the snake around strategic modeling. We had a CFO client that wanted to model an acquisition opportunity fast and wanted to avoid the risk of using spreadsheets to model that and how it's going to affect their P&L, their balance sheet, and cash flow. They needed to be able to project out a 5-year pro forma set of financials and then use that to evaluate, whether they should make the acquisition. So several case studies of how we've deployed our jungle friends within EPM. I'd like to thank you for joining our webinar. If you'd like to learn more, please reach out to infosolutions@alithia.com.